Welcome to KRA's The Hub, the official podcast of KRA Corporation. And now get ready to hear workforce topics and trends you need to know on the go.
Well, welcome to KRA's The Hub podcast. This is the host of The Hub, Jonathan Overall. And today I'm joined by a special guest, one of our program directors coming from Summit and Medina Counties in Ohio. And this month, the month of November, we're actually highlighting KRA's career services, our approach, what we call the KRA way. And we're going to feature that topic, but we're going to look specifically at our operations in Ohio. And I'm joined by Mike Longo. He is the program director in Ohio. Mike, welcome to the Hub.
Thanks, Jonathan. I'm pleased to be here.
Well, I'm excited, Mike, because we've done spotlight features on Ohio really at large before, but we've never taken a closer look specifically at career services, KRA's approach, and how that is implemented in Ohio. But before we get into that, I want to start off with your background. Can you give our audience some insights? What led you into workforce development? And really, what has it been that has inspired you and has been a passionate element of the work that you do on a daily basis?
Absolutely. My career in workforce development actually started many years ago. Out of college, actually, I entered the human services system in Cleveland, Ohio, and worked for a couple years helping single parents with children get involved in training programs, GED, various occupational skill programs. That was through the human services system. And after doing that for a couple years, I kind of escalated up into different management positions, working in the human services system, overseeing activities in our job readiness programs and our community work experience programs, developed a lot of relationships with employers through those mechanisms. And then a decision was rendered in that community to merge the division that I was overseeing in human services with the public workforce system. So I surfaced in public workforce in the mid 90s, had the opportunity to manage the first American Job Center in Ohio that became certified by the state of Ohio, putting together workforce programs, working closely with the partners under the former Workforce Investment Act to focus on building a more diverse public workforce system. And we actually had a very good system in place. Did that for a number of years. And then about 14 and a half years ago, I moved from Cuyahoga County, where I was working, to Lorain County in Ohio, which is the county I live in, and was given the opportunity to become a director of the Workforce Development Agency, where we ran workforce programs, both for the adult programming as well as the youth programming. So you could see over 30 plus years, I've been very actively involved with helping develop relationships with job seekers, various demographical backgrounds of those job seekers, work very closely with the employer community, and not a lot of rewards in a sense of people necessarily always thanking you, but it's the rewards that you see of people that are gaining employment, becoming better employed, becoming reemployed, that keeps me, very happy with working in this system.
I think one of the things that I see as I have different conversations with workforce leaders, especially those that have been in an area, specific area for a number of years, is the opportunity to see that investment pay off. And so just listening to you and what you've seen and what you've invested with your own career, I'm sure it's been rewarding to see initiatives and different efforts that are workforce related pay off over time. And ultimately, Mike, that's what we look for in workforce development, is to see the impact and what that looks like in the community. Now, for those who don't live or have never been to Ohio, Summit and Medina Counties, when you think about the workforce, when you think about the community partnerships that are woven into the area, the economy, how would you describe Summit and Medina County and the workforce, and what are the things that make it unique?
Yeah, it's interesting because while you have two counties that are part of the public workforce system in this area, they're very different in a sense of how they're made up. Summit County being an urban area, both are located in Northeast Ohio, but Summit's a larger county, fourth most populous in the state of Ohio, behind only Cleveland, Cincinnati, and Columbus. So very large county. It is a county that has relied on industry manufacturing over the years. It's a hub for the tire industry. So a lot of people who are familiar with the Akron area know that companies like Goodyear and Bridgestone and Hankook, those are very large companies that are tire industry that the community has relied on. It's also, though, fortunate with the University of Akron, to have a lot of polymer research going on. So you've got the continued focus on developing the manufacturing sector. But it also has a very large national park. So Cuyahoga National Park is it's the seventh most visited park in the U.S. So you've got, diversity in a sense of a very urban area, but with a large area that's dedicated to the park. Akron is the county seat. It is the largest city in Summit County. Current unemployment rates are around 5.3%. So you've got a larger county, a little bit higher unemployment rates. And then Medina County, as I mentioned, kind of a whole different makeup. Medina County is also located between Cleveland and Akron. So you're right in the middle of the two very big cities, but it's a mix of rural and urban. And it would have, over the years, really been more focused on agriculture. And you're seeing some pockets of manufacturing popping up over the past few years. It has a very low unemployment rate, about 3.2%. At one point, it was the lowest unemployment in the state. That's made up of 88 counties. So the low unemployment and a strong education system provide for a little bit of a higher quality of life. So you've got less job seekers that are in need compared to a larger county like Summit, where you have more job seekers that are looking for that assistance.
Piggybacking off of that, you talked about the need for job assistance with those job seekers. Obviously, we're in the business of providing support, providing job opportunities. One of the key pillars of KRA is career services and meeting people where they're at. But as we talk deeper about what that really means, helping people find sustainable employment, how does that model really come to life on a day-to-day basis through the Ohio team? As they're meeting customers, as somebody walks through the door, what can they expect walking through the door in terms of services to really meet them where they are?
Well, you can walk through the main doors of the American Job Centers, and I'll get a little bit more into the services in a moment. We also kind of meet the people where they are in a sense that, you've got a large county like Summit, county like Medina, where there's not really a very good transportation system in place, and trying to develop relationships where we also bring our services out into the community. We have a number of public library systems, both in Summit County and Medina County, where we've forged partnerships with the workforce board and help let people access the services closer to home. And while it might not be the full gamut of services that you get should you walk through the main centers, it's a pretty good replica of accessing a career coach or somebody that's there to help you with general type information that you might need assistance with to benefit from the public workforce system. Our system is, going to cater to a variety of different type of job seekers. Obviously, in an American Job Center, you have some folks who might be required to come and utilize the services versus folks who might be getting laid off, and you're trying to attract them to come in to use your system as well to benefit from dislocated worker services. But trying to meet those people where they are in a sense of not everybody needs the same thing. So it's not necessarily a cookie cutter approach. So our career coaches would do an assessment with the individual they're working with. They would create an employment plan that would be based upon each individual's needs. and then basically help the folks along the way to achieving the outcomes that were part of that plan. And I present that our system really, the way I've presented it over the years, is that the workforce system is kind of like a crutch. We're not here to give people jobs per se. We're here to help people as they're doing their part to find work, and we're here to try to help them, overcome the daily obstacles, have more insight as to things that could better their chances. But really just being kind of providing that compassion and checking in. How are things going? How many resumes did you send out this week? Did you get any interviews? What type of questions were asked on those interviews? How did you answer those questions? Maybe we could have figured out a different way to answer those questions. So really, again, tailoring the relationships based upon each individual that we're working with.
One of the things that comes up a lot in conversations in workforce and human services is that first experience, that first encounter that somebody has when they walk through the door. And a lot of times, I think the perception that people have is that if they walk into a public facility to receive services, that it's going to look and feel a certain kind of a way. And people may have the picture of a DMV in their mind. And obviously the services that we provide in the Ohio Means Job Centers is different. And KRA's approach to engaging job seeker customers is different. What is that experience like from intake to assessment and through the journey towards job placement that really sets the strategies apart that the team is making, your local team, in being that touch point to make a difference in the job seeker's life?
Yeah, great question. So, from intake and assessment, I think as presented in the last question, we have folks that are coming through all different backgrounds, and the staff that are here trying to make sure that we're collecting what we need to deem folks eligible. But then also, again, recognizing that everybody's different. I think it's important that as our career coaches develop relationships with the individuals that they're working with, the coordination with that side of our team to our business services team, and recognizing that the business services team is the group of folks that really work closely with the employers. So they're developing those relationships. Our particular project has weekly meetings that engage the career coaches with the business service reps and the managers. And it's the opportunity for the business services folks to talk about the employers that they might be working with, but also the time for the coaches to make sure that the business service team knows who they're working with, so that the business service team might have a better approach to targeting their job development efforts. And these are some of the new things that we're doing. This particular contract, while it's just over a year old, I've been in this role since mid-July. And these are the type of approaches that we're trying to put in place to improve upon what may have been happening, but also, again, to continue to build upon relationships with both the job seekers and the employers that we're working with.
We're living in an age where virtual services and technology platforms are really replacing a lot of the work that people used to do. And even if people are still part of the equation, a lot more is being invested into technology and in virtual kiosks. How is technology being used in the Summit and Medina centers to engage job seekers? And what are some of the tools that your team is using to help improve engagement outcomes for the participants that you're working with?
Yeah, so there's a number of different things that we've been trying to put in place regarding innovation. And, some of them as simple as maybe using QR codes on some of the documents and ways that we have folks register for our services. And while those particular techniques might not be appropriate for everybody, because again, recognizing that not everybody's the same. For example, in Medina, we're working with a very older workforce, folks who are in their 70s who are still looking for assistance finding some form of work. And, they might not have the knowledge or technology to be able to do something as simple as scanning a QR code. But for those that are able to scan a QR code and understand what that means and how it might simplify process, being able to collect data through that approach. We're also using some very cool software platforms, Engage by Cell being one of them. This is a system that allows us to use the technology to text people who are within our database. It's a way of being able to help with outreach efforts and trying to engage folks that may not be familiar with our system. And that actually has shown as being a way of helping to get the word out. We happen to receive new claimant reports for unemployment on a weekly basis, and we're just in the process of trying to use that innovation. We've been using just a standard email approach, trying to get the word out, and then people following up our intake and outreach with phone calls, trying to engage with some of these folks who are newly unemployed, with the hope that they're going to connect with our system. And as you get more people connected with your system, it just has that many more people that you're working with, that diversifies the type of job seeker pool that you have in place, which then hopefully satisfies the demands of the employer community. But those are just a couple ways. We also, while we use a proprietary customer tracking system, the AGS Prime system, it's a way to develop an approach that could customize the database and add fields to the database. So as you know, one day you're thinking, boy, it sure would be nice if we can collect this. Those are the type of systems that we have in place, just to be able to go and add a field to a screen and be able to start collect whatever that was. So I think that those are a couple examples of the way that we use some of the current technology to improve the approach of being innovative.
Now, we've talked about, you mentioned how KRA's approach to career services starts with being present in places that are accessible, meeting job seekers where they're at, literally physically in the community. And I know that's part of the outreach efforts of the team, as well as where they are in terms of their journey, and assessing and doing intake to help build an employment plan for there. And you mentioned, Mike, that you've been on board here locally since July with KRA. During that time, what are some of the, maybe one instance where you look back and you've seen a success story or an outcome that really reflects the impact of the work that your team has done, and that it really exhibits the power, the strength of this approach to career services?
Yeah, so I think in the short tenure that I've had here, an interesting presentation. I shared this during one of the manager meetings with the KRA leadership team. I was connected to the Medina County Economic Development Corporation through a meeting with the workforce director / client. And in my interaction with the executive director of the Economic Development Corporation, got an opportunity to learn more about what they do, but also was presented with a situation with an employer who was one of their members, who had shared their frustration with connecting with our system, and learned that this was an employer that tried to connect very early on in the contract. And while everything wasn't in place and things weren't as operating as effectively or efficiently as they could have been, it was an opportunity to re-engage with this employer. So, myself and Tom, our business services manager, Tom Thornton, we went out, met with the employer, did figure out that, they were interested in having some on-site recruitment events because their company was expanding. They were getting new business. They were having a hard time keeping up with meeting the expectations of the new business. And they had prior success with the former vendor in this community with a recruitment event that was held a couple years ago. So we tapped into all of our team and we figured out how to coordinate a couple recruitment sessions where we went right out to the place of business. We had folks from our team there that were helping to enroll the folks that were coming to the recruitment event. While we didn't get a huge turnout, we got enough that the employer was happy, and there were 3 or 4 placements that came about. And, as I think about the success, it was, all of these efforts, and then hearing back from the folks at the Medina Career Center who got a call from a couple that they were working with, a husband and wife, and the husband and wife were actually sent to the recruitment event one day when they surfaced at the American Job Center, and they happened to go, and both of them were hired. They started at the same time. They were about five minutes from home. They also both happened to be a couple that were laid off from Joann Fabrics earlier in this year, as that company was closing down. So the company was happy. The company obviously shared their outcomes with the Economic Development Corporation, who in return was happy because we connected and kind of did some damage control to build that relationship back with that employer. And they feel comfortable, and we've continued to receive referrals of other employers, not necessarily who may have had a similar situation, but just new employers who the Economic Development Corporation is comfortable making the connection to our system, knowing that we're going to deliver. So that's kind of like from start to finish, the success of being able to have that relationship with both the employers and the job seekers, and making positive outcomes happen.
That's great. I think a perfect example of how, even as we talk about career services, that it alone, it's not in a silo, but it really functions off of the other inner working parts of the program, business services, which opens up the door towards partnerships. I do want to talk about that as well. Partnerships and the different collaborations that KRA has within the community, to provide those services. And so you talked about employers, but are there any other partnerships or collaborations that the team has had with training providers or other community programs that have, from your perspective, strengthened the KRA's offering of career services to job seekers?
We're always in the system like this trying to develop more partnerships. And you think about the organizations in a community that provide workforce services. There's organizations, urban leagues, United Ways, Goodwill Industries. You could name many organizations in your community who try to help people. And I think connecting our system with those systems and being able to share job leads and opportunities that are coming into the system, while we want to have great relationships with the employers we're working with, we know we always don't have the folks within our system to be able to satisfy some of those needs. So those partnerships are critical to being able to get more folks within the ecosystem engaged to be able to help deliver. And we have the partners who are part of the American Job Center, but some of these other partners might not necessarily be as engaged in the center versus delivering services out in the community. So connecting the dots, doing our best to try to continue to let folks know who we are in the community, continue to provide good services so people feel confident about connecting with the KRA team and the Ohio Means job system in general. And once you do that and people know who you are and they can trust you, the partnerships kind of continue to develop on their own.
Lastly, before we close today, what excites you the most about the future?
What excites me the most is, we've had the opportunity to continually to improve upon what's been put in place with this particular project in Ohio. And when I think about, the opportunities just to continue improving and get better at what we're doing, just expands the opportunity to continue to grow and to get more contracts. I mean, when you could have a system like KRA that's focused on what we do and we're good at what we do, the hope is that you can continue to get the word out there and get more entities that want to bring your services into the equation. And I feel that the leadership that this corporation offers, the team in general, boots on the ground, everybody is all in it for trying to do the same thing, which is developing a system that's going to be respected and hopefully continue to build upon the contracts around Ohio and throughout different states.
That's great. Well, Mike, I want to thank you for your time today and walking us through KRA's approach to career services here in Ohio within Summit and Medina County, giving us some insight as to what a job seeker can expect, but also some of the strengths and the pillars of those services in the community and how that's linked together with other partners. And I'm looking forward to seeing some of the things that you mentioned as they come into fruition here in the future, and continual expansion and growth opportunities to serve more people within that region. How can people find out more if they're a job seeker in that area or even on the outside about the centers there? Are there websites that they can take a look at?
Yeah, the website to get to both the Ohio Means Job Centers here in Summit and Medina is Ohio Means Jobs, all one word, .com /Summit or /Medina. And that'll get you to the website to learn more about the services, the QR codes, to register for orientation, and some of the other information that we spoke about.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you, Mike, for joining us on the Hub. And we'll have to catch up again at some point down the road as things continue to grow and come into fruition there in Ohio. But until then, thank you and see you next time.
Yep, absolutely. Pleasure is mine, Jonathan.
Thank you for listening to KRA's The Hub. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts. To learn more about KRA Corporation, visit www.kra.com. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll be back soon with a new episode.